Can you believe it's day 3 of the drama detox already? And well done to you for making it thus far. I've received so much of feedback from all of you guys. I love hearing your feedback. I love your comments. I love the emails that you sent. And from all of it, I know that you are realizing what a massive shift it can make in your life when you are better equipped to deal with relationships more constructively, especially the ones that are filled with drama and toxicity. And so you're gaining a lot more self-awareness through this process. Remember, these videos will be up for a limited time only. So if you haven't done so, make sure that you watch them and you catch up as best as you can. The links are in the email that I've sent you. So I've sent the links for you to catch up with. You can access the previous videos if you need to, or even if you just want to go over them again so that it can sink in more deeply. It'll be available before the drama detox ends. The responses have been through the roof. I just want to take a moment to say that I appreciate each and every single one of you. I appreciate each and every single one of you who have taken the time to reach out to me and email me. If you already have done so, I still look forward to more feedback. And if you haven't as yet reached out to me, but you've benefited in any way, I would love to hear how, and I would love to hear from you. So please drop me a DM or email me, because I love hearing from you and I love your feedback. So to do a quick recap, in video 1, we defined our why. So why it's so important for you to make these changes, why it's so important to equip. It's easy to fall into that space of saying, oh, it's so petty, I should just make sabr and overlook it. But unfortunately, and I gave you the example of cutting myself with a piece of glass on my foot. And if I didn't take care of it, it would become septic and infectious. And the truth of the matter is, I've seen this in my own life, and I've seen it in the lives of thousands of clients that I've worked with over the years as an emotional wellness coach, as a body talk practitioner, as a life coach, even in business coaching, I've seen it come up so many times, is that when you don't take the time to do the inner work and the healing work of moving beyond how these toxic people make you feel, of developing a different mindset and skill set, and shifting in the way you allow them to affect you, it affects every single part of your life. It affects your ability to pursue your business goals. It affects your self-confidence. It affects the ability to which you're able to enjoy happiness in your life. I've seen so many people over the years be in situations where they have really good lives, and they'll even tell me, Zaahida, I have a good life and I have so much to be thankful for, but I just can't appreciate it. And one of the biggest reasons why is because you're so bogged down by all this drama and negativity that it overshadows all the good in your life. And that's a really sad state to be in. So it's important to know your why, because it can, if dealing with toxicity and not being equipped in the right way, we looked at aspects like emotional eating, social anxiety, getting caught up in people pleasing, your physical and emotional health. All of these things seem to be so out of your control, but when you really take a few steps back, you realize how much it has to do with the relationships in your life, especially the negative relationships and the drama that comes from that. So it's not at all petty. It's actually think about how different your life would be if you're not being bogged down by it. How would that affect your self-esteem? How would that affect your relationships with your kids and your partner? In video 2, we went over how to deal with emotional blackmail and how to tell the difference between emotional blackmail versus healthy boundaries. And a lot of this drama comes from that and affects you negatively. So that's very important to be able to actually recognize it, right? And like I said, there will always be toxic people, but we have more power than we think. And being equipped to deal with it is the most important thing you will do for your mental and emotional well-being, and even your physical well-being. So never ever think that it's petty. Never ever think that it's too small. It takes a tremendous amount of courage to sit up and say, you know what, I know I need to shift in this area, and I'm willing to do the work and to do the internal healing work of getting into that space. So today we're going to go into even more understanding. Today I want to teach you how different relationships not only impact you, but also more about creating healthy relationships. And you'll remember right at the beginning of the Drama Detox, we spoke about how relationships either feed and nurture you or they drain you, and how we're wired to seek connection. We're wired for relationships. We are social beings, right? And like I mentioned, sadly, I've seen too many people wanting to give up on relationships because of their negative experiences, and avoiding connection is just simply not a long-term solution, because at some point you're going to seek that. So you might feel like you just want to keep to yourself because you've dealt with so much of drama over the years and you're so disappointed. You've been so disappointed and hurt over and over again. So it's understandable to feel like you'd rather just lay low and not get too attached to anyone. And I hear that from people sometimes, you know, like, oh, it's just, and I've heard this from clients many times in the beginning, and they go into this completely protective mode where they feel like, you know what, I'm fed up with it all. I'm just going to do what's expected of me, and I'm not going to get too attached to everyone because everybody ends up disappointing you at some point. And so I'm just going to keep myself detached from everyone, except that they're miserable. They're absolutely miserable, and they feel so alone and they feel so desolate because they are not getting that connection that they want, until we work together to do that healing work, to get into a space. And you'll see tomorrow by the end of the video, just stay tuned. I've got something very, very special coming up that's going to help you to also get into that space, inshallah. And once they shift on it and they grow, they're in a position where they are creating healthier relationships. So instead of cutting relationships out completely and going to the extreme, they are empowered and equipped to be able to create healthy relationships in their life. And that gives them such a sense of fulfillment, right? And I'm going to explain a lot of why that is right now. So you've been disappointed not over and over again. And you might feel like, you know, you just want to withdraw from everyone. Yes, sometimes it is important to take a time out, you know, and just recharge yourself. But, you know, it's like I said, we are social beings. We are biologically hardwired to seek connection with other human beings. In fact, the research shows that when you connect with others in a meaningful way, whether it's a friend, whether it's a family member, your brain produces this amazing hormone and neurotransmitter called oxytocin. Now, for those of you, some of you who might be in the medical field of any sort, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But oxytocin is anti-inflammatory, it boosts your immune health, it improves your digestion, it inhibits growth of malignant cells, helps repair heart tissue, and much, much more. I could go on and on. I just listed a few benefits of oxytocin on your physical well-being. Positive relationships literally nurture you right down to a cellular level. So no matter how much you might try to push it away, being human means that you will inevitably seek out and crave connection at some point. We want that in our lives. On the other hand, when you're dealing with toxic relationships, the stress that it causes you has a very real effect on your body and on your immune system. For those of you who've done my course and you know the negative impact stress can have and how it can wreak havoc in the long term over your physical health. All the research now shows that stress is a huge part of overall health issues. And when you think about how a toxic relationship makes you feel, it all makes sense. The stress of toxic relationships has a very real negative impact on your body and mind. So imagine being able to deal with toxic relationships better so that it didn't chip away at you and didn't have a negative effect on you. The sad reality is that we tend to spend more time on those negative relationships that drain us, right? And you keep questioning yourself, what's wrong with me? Am I not good enough? Why do they always do this to me? And you spend so much time being drained by it and doubting yourself and berating yourself and shame. And then you spend the other part of it saying, what's wrong with me? Why am I so affected by it? Like I said, there are some personality types. You know, you might be married to someone, or you have a sister or whoever else in your life who just goes, let it go. It's not a big deal. What's the big deal? And it could be one of two things. On the one hand, it could be a couple of things. They could be suppressing it, right? And that leads to resentment long term, or maybe it genuinely doesn't affect them. There are some personality types that are just able to not be as affected by what people think of them. Alhamdulillah, that's amazing. Or they've done the internal work of not letting it get to them. And so if you're not someone who naturally just doesn't bother you, all is not lost. There are ways to overcome it so that it doesn't affect you in the same way. And so we spend so much time on these relationships, and then we spend time judging and shaming ourselves. What's wrong with me? Why can't I be more like my sister? Why can't I be more like my husband, that it doesn't affect me? Stop shaming and judging yourself. That's only making it worse. And then you have even less energy left over for those good, positive relationships that nurture you. Those relationships that would leave you with more energy to pour into creating healthy relationships, right? Whether we like it or not, like I said, we thrive on healthy connection. And so instead of cutting relationships out entirely, it makes more sense to develop the skills and the mindset and do the healing work that can help you create and nurture healthier relationships. So we've decided now that, you know, the usual thing that people tend to do is say, well, that's it, no more relationships. But we're saying, you know what, we need that oxytocin, we need that connection, we need people in our lives. You know, life is just more fulfilling that way. But we also then need to empower ourselves with the skills and mindset to create those healthy relationships and not allow ourselves to get so drained by the toxic ones. So I want to go on that point. Today, I want to teach you about codependent versus interdependent relationships. And these describe two very different ways of approaching a relationship, which will lead to whether that relationship depletes you or it nurtures you. For many of us, you know, you might not even realize that you're creating or co-creating a codependent relationship. And the reason that I say co-creating is that it takes two hands to clap. If there's an unhealthy or toxic dynamic that has formed, even if you're not behaving in so-called toxic ways, you might be enabling the other person to manipulate you or emotionally blackmail you or to behave in a toxic way. So without realizing it, you end up setting yourself up to feel drained by your relationships. And again, the powerful thing is that as you recognize it and as you do your own healing work, you can begin to change it. So what is a codependent relationship, right? These are relationships that on the surface, it looks like there's a lot of love and care, and there might actually be a lot of love and care. I just want to make sure that you guys can actually see this. So, right, hold on. There you go. Now I can be sure that you can see all of this, right? So these are relations, like I said, there might be a lot of love and care, but what happens is that the way that love and care is expressed in actions or in words become unhealthy for one or both parties. It's where you become very enmeshed or entangled in the other person. Now, I'm not talking about closeness. That's not what I'm talking about. You can be very close to someone and not be in a codependent relationship. But I am talking about where you are enmeshed and entangled, which is very different to, it's very different to just being connected, deeply connected. This is a relationship where you are overly dependent on the other person to give you, number one, validation. You know, validation, they make you depend on this person to make you feel better about yourself. So if this person is happy with you, then you can be happy with yourself. And usually them being happy with you is about whether or not you're doing what they say. So as long as you listen to what they say and do everything that they say, they are happy with you, and then you feel good about yourself. The minute you want to have an independent kind of way of doing things, or you want to do something differently, then they're not happy with you, you're not happy with yourself, and so you feel very guilty, you feel very bad, and you quickly comply with what they're saying. The second thing that you become overly dependent on is your sense of identity with this person. So you allow the other person to define you. Now remember, in video 2 we spoke about emotional blackmail and how an emotional blackmailer will try to make you feel very bad about yourself. The worse they can make you feel about yourself, the more guilty they make you feel, and the more likely you are to give in to them. So in this situation, you allow the other person to define you and tell you how you should feel about yourself. So if this person ever gets angry with you, you're not just upset that they're angry with you, but you're now completely devastated, because them not being happy with you or rejecting you means that now you kind of have to reject yourself. And only when they accept you can you start accepting yourself. Can you see what a disempowering situation it puts you into? The third thing is your general well-being. So in this type of relationship, in a codependent relationship, you're really at the mercy of the other person's state of mind. You might hear things like, how can I be happy when you are not? I didn't sleep at all last night because I was so worried about the problems you're having with your husband. Now, at this stage, you might think, hey, this is just showing care and concern, right? And on the surface, yes. But if you look at it, you see how, if you look more deeply, the entanglement is excessive. You'll notice how over time this relationship actually becomes burdensome. It feels like you have to carry this person. And then of course, when you're going through something and they don't care in the same way, then you might have resentment coming up because you feel like you've gone out of your way and they don't care about you. So the lines between being supportive and taking on other stuff becomes very, very blurred. So there's just that, that picture shows it so nicely. There's such an entanglement or enmeshment. So in a codependent relationship, you might even feel like your desires and needs are not as important as the other person, so you don't express them, and so the relationship becomes very, very one-sided. And if you've ever been in one of these relationships, you're probably nodding your head right now going, oh my gosh, that sounds exactly like the relationship I had with my friend or with a family member or whoever else it might be. And you can see how over time a relationship like this, where it just feels like you're giving and you're giving and you're giving, and you're constantly trying to prove yourself to this person. You're constantly trying to please this person. You're constantly trying to get this person's approval. Why? Because the way they feel about you becomes the way you feel about yourself. You might not have identified that point, but this is effectively what's happening. And so then you can see how exhausting it becomes, because it's like this constant, never-ending treadmill that you have to keep on running every single day in every single situation to have to keep proving yourself. And so obviously this relationship becomes incredibly, incredibly draining. So in a codependent relationship, as tempting as it is, it's very easy, as tempting as it is to completely blame the other person and make it their fault and lay all the blame on them. Healing begins with you first owning your part in it. How have you contributed to this dynamic, right? It takes two to tango, as they say, okay? It's very important if you truly want to be empowered in your relationships, if you truly want to begin healing toxic dynamics and creating healthier relationships, healing begins with first owning your part in it. How have you contributed to this dynamic? Like I've said before, it takes two to tango. So chances are that if you're experiencing a codependent relationship anywhere in your life, then, how have you contributed to it? This is possibly the only way you know how to be in a relationship, right? Now, I want to also explain that these are on a spectrum. You might find that in some relationships, there's more codependency than others. And those are probably the ones that you find more challenging or that are going into a toxic space. Because yes, codependent relationships can become toxic as well. Now, let's look at the other side, which is a healthier relationship called interdependent relationships. In an interdependent relationship, there's a dynamic that there's still a lot of love, there's a lot of care, there's a lot of support, but the way that this is displayed is in a far healthier way. And these are the types of relationships that you really want to aim for. An interdependent relationship is a healthy relationship. These are the relationships that nurture you and give you all of the beautiful benefits of connection, oxytocin, and so on. Think if you have any relationship in your life that you could just describe it as that truly fulfills you and doesn't have any drama or toxicity, think about how it makes you feel, right? The important question to ask yourself here is, have you developed the mindset and skill set to shift out of codependent relationships into healthier interdependent relationships? Now, if you're wondering about this and what independent relationships are like, then make sure that you stay tuned for details of the next part of this challenge, where I will be going more deeply into this and you learn more about this, right? So very important announcement. I've loved having you all part of this 5-day challenge thus far. We're on day 3, and from all of the amazing feedback that I'm so appreciative of, I know that you've benefited from everything you've learned over these last few days. In a small space of time, you've actually gotten a lot of insight. It's been so rewarding and exciting for me to see how everyone is getting into this, learning how big a deal this is in your life, the kind of amazing impact it can have in your life when you're equipped to deal with this, when you are equipped to create healthier relationships and connection, how it can impact the other people in your life, and how it could just fundamentally change your future. I have loved this process and the interaction, and I know that there are so many more of you who want to go even deeper. So an important announcement is that tomorrow I will be going live. So tomorrow, 28th of November, I will be going live on Instagram and in the Facebook group. I will email you details also so that you can make sure that you catch it. But I will be going live, so diarize that, schedule that in your calendar. It's going to be at 8 p.m. tonight, where you're going to be learning more about this concept of how to create healthier relationships and interdependent relationships. And I will also be making a very, very special announcement and offer, and opening up something limited that I've put together for a limited time only for those of you who want to go deeper and truly transform and revolutionize your relationships in 2020. If you want 2020 to be fundamentally different in how you experience experienced it, then you make sure that you are around for that announcement. And that announcement is basically the next step beyond this. So if you're ready to move forward and ready to gain mastery in this area of your life and really change and transform your life and relationships, then I'm super, super excited about what you're going to be hearing tomorrow. Either way, I'm going to see you tomorrow because we're going to chat more about interdependent relationships and creating healthier dynamics in your life and moving away from some of those toxic ones so that you can thrive emotionally, physically, in every other way and experience an inspiring life. So, thank you for joining me today, and I will see you tomorrow at the live. Make sure you diarize it, and I'll see you really soon.